Have you ever loved someone so intensely that it felt like you were losing yourself in them? Like every thought, every feeling, every decision somehow revolved around them. And even when things went wrong, you still stayed, still hoped, still believed? What if I told you that this kind of loving too deeply isn't just romantic, it's a psychological pattern? And if you recognize it in yourself, you might be closer to understanding why you feel so much, so hard, and what you can do about it. Stick around because we're diving into the science, the emotions, the patterns, the risks, and also how to shift towards something healthier without losing your ability to love. Let's talk about a kind of love that most people feel at least once, and some people live over and over again, loving too deeply. That might mean giving more than you get, idealizing someone, feeling like your world revolves around them, or staying when your gut says you should walk away. It might feel noble. It might feel like that's just who you are, a person who loves completely. But when does loving deeply cross into something that's unhealthy, unsustainable, or even painful for you? Loving deeply in itself isn't wrong. Deep love can be beautiful. It's what drives connection, creativity, and the most meaningful relationships. But when that love starts to cost you your peace, your boundaries, your identity, that's when it becomes too deep. It becomes a form of love that consumes rather than completes. You might start giving to the point of exhaustion, ignoring your needs to keep the other person happy, staying even when you're being hurt. You might begin to feel like your emotional well-being depends entirely on them, as if you can't breathe without their approval. That's when love starts to blur into something else, something psychologists often call codependency or anxious attachment. Psychology has a lot to say about this. Researchers John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth developed something called attachment theory. Basically, how our early childhood experiences with caregivers shape the way we connect with others later in life. People who had consistent, safe love often grow into adults with what's called a secure attachment style. They can love deeply without losing themselves. They feel safe being close to someone, and they also feel safe being alone. But for others, especially those who grew up with inconsistent or conditional love, that balance doesn't come easily. They might develop what's known as an anxious attachment style. That's when you crave closeness, but you're also terrified of losing it. You give, you cling, you worry, you try to prove your worth through love. Studies published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology have shown that people with anxious attachment styles tend to feel more distress and anxiety in relationships. They might interpret neutral behavior as rejection, or silence as abandonment. Their nervous system literally reacts to emotional distance like it's a threat. That's why they can't just chill when someone pulls away. Their body is wired for alarm. This is why when you love too deeply, it can feel like your survival depends on the other person. And in a way, your brain is playing tricks on you. Neuroscientists at Harvard found that romantic love activates the same reward centers as addiction. Dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, floods your brain when you're around the person you love. You feel high, you feel alive, but when they pull away or when things go wrong, that same brain pathway crashes. You go into withdrawal. That's why people who love deeply can experience heartbreak almost like a physical illness. Nausea, shaking, sleeplessness. You're literally detoxing from a person. If this sounds familiar, it's not your imagination, and you're not weak. You're wired for connection, and your brain evolved to attach. The problem is when that attachment becomes the only thing that defines your stability. Loving too deeply can become a coping mechanism for deeper insecurities, maybe from childhood, maybe from rejection, maybe from past trauma. You learn to equate love with safety. So you try to hold on tighter, thinking if you just love enough, you'll finally feel safe. Here's what it often looks like in real life. You start a relationship, and within weeks you feel completely consumed by it. You think about them constantly. You check your phone every few minutes. Your emotions rise and fall based on how responsive they are. You might ignore your friends, skip plans, stop doing the things that make you feel like you. You put them first in everything. And if they start to pull away, you panic. You might over-text, over-apologize, over-explain, or beg for reassurance. Deep down, what you're really saying isn't "don't leave me." It's "don't make me feel unworthy again." Psychologists call this emotional dependency, when your self-esteem depends on another person's behavior or validation. Over time, this kind of dependency can erode your sense of self. You might start tolerating things you shouldn't. Disrespect, neglect, even emotional manipulation. You might tell yourself, they'll change. They just need more love. But what you're really doing is trying to heal your own wounds through someone else. Loving too deeply can also show up in subtler ways. Maybe you're the one who always fixes, rescues, or sacrifices. You take responsibility for the other person's emotions. If they're sad, you feel like it's your job to make it better. If they're angry, you blame yourself. You start walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. You say yes when you want to say no. You convince yourself that being selfless is what love is all about. But that's not love. That's fear wearing the mask of devotion. Here's something to think about. Real love doesn't erase your boundaries. It honors them. When you love someone in a healthy way, you give from a full heart, not from emptiness. You share your life, but you don't surrender your identity. You compromise, but you don't collapse. And you never have to lose yourself to keep someone else. So, how do you know if you're loving too deeply? There are a few signs. You feel anxious when your partner isn't around. You constantly need reassurance. You overthink every message or silence. You apologize even when it's not your fault. You prioritize their needs over yours. You fear being alone so much that you stay in relationships that aren't working. You feel drained but can't imagine letting go. You feel guilty for wanting space or asserting your needs. If several of these sound like you might be loving from a place of insecurity, not balance. Now let's be clear, loving deeply isn't a flaw. It means you're capable of great empathy, loyalty, and connection. It's your superpower. But that power needs boundaries. Because without them, your empathy can turn into overextension, your loyalty into self-abandonment, and your connection into obsession. A study from the National Library of Medicine found that individuals with high relational anxiety often show a pattern of self-silencing, meaning they suppress their needs and feelings to keep the relationship stable. Over time, that suppression leads to resentment, exhaustion, and emotional burnout. You can only bottle your truth for so long before it starts to leak out as sadness or anger. But here's the good news. These patterns aren't permanent. Attachment styles can change. Emotional dependency can heal. The first step is awareness, noticing when your love starts to cross into self-neglect. Ask yourself, am I loving them, or am I trying to earn love from them? Do I feel free in this relationship or trapped by it? Do I know who I am without this person? The second step is rebuilding your sense of self. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't build a relationship on a foundation that doesn't include you. Spend time alone. Reconnect with your hobbies, your values, your people. Journal, travel, meditate. Do things that remind you of who you are when no one else is defining you. Because the stronger your sense of self becomes, the less likely you are to lose it in someone else. It's also important to learn what healthy love actually looks like. Healthy love isn't constant intensity, it's consistency. It's not the high of butterflies, it's the calm of security. It's communication, honesty, respect, boundaries, and teamwork. It's when you can be vulnerable and safe at the same time. It's when disagreements don't feel like the end of the world. It's when you can breathe. Many people who love too deeply confuse intensity with intimacy. They think if it doesn't feel like fire, it isn't real. But the truth is that fire is often anxiety, the nervous system mistaking fear for excitement. Healthy love can feel boring at first if you're used to chaos. But give it time. Safety is quieter, but it's stronger. Let's look at how this plays out. Imagine two people. One falls in love and immediately makes their partner their whole life. They overgive, overpromise, overlook red flags. They think, if I just love hard enough, everything will work. But love isn't about force, it's about flow. When things start to go wrong, they blame themselves and try harder. The more they try, the more they lose themselves. The relationship becomes unbalanced. And eventually, it collapses under the weight of that one-sided intensity. The other person also loves deeply, but differently. They take their time. They express their feelings honestly. They give without expecting to fix. They set boundaries early. They don't chase, they communicate. They know that love grows, it doesn't consume. And because they stay grounded, their love is steady, not chaotic. The difference between the two isn't depth, it's self-awareness. One is driven by fear, the other by balance. If you've been the first kind of person, please know, there's no shame in that. You loved with everything you had. You tried. That's not something to regret. It just means now it's time to love differently, to love with wisdom, not just intensity. So, how do you do that? You start by recognizing when you're acting out of fear. If you feel the urge to text them a dozen times to make sure they still care, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? Often it's not about them. It's about that old wound inside you that says, if they stop loving me, I'm not enough. But you are enough. Even if they leave. Even if they don't text back. Your worth was never supposed to be built on someone else's response. Then set small boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls. They're self-respect. They tell others, this is how I need to be treated to feel safe and respected. Practice saying no. Practice spending time apart. Practice not over-explaining. The more you do, the more you'll feel your own power returning. You can also practice what psychologists call emotional regulation, calming your nervous system when it spirals into fear. Ground yourself. Breathe deeply. Do something soothing. Remind yourself that distance or disagreement doesn't equal abandonment. The more you self-soothe, the less you'll rely on external reassurance. If you find yourself stuck in patterns that feel impossible to change, therapy can help. Attachment-based therapy, inner child work, or trauma-informed counseling can help you heal the root wounds that drive your need to love too deeply. You don't have to stop loving. You just have to love from a healthier place. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. If a relationship constantly drains you, disrespects you, or makes you feel small, leaving isn't failure. It's self-respect. Love shouldn't require you to break yourself just to keep it alive. Walking away doesn't mean you loved wrongly. It means you finally chose yourself. Real love doesn't demand that you disappear. It invites you to show up fully as yourself. It doesn't ask you to prove your worth. It already sees it. It doesn't hold you hostage to fear. It makes you feel free. So if you've ever been told you love too much, don't let that make you bitter. Loving deeply is a gift. It means your heart is open, alive, capable of connection that many people spend their whole lives searching for. The goal isn't to love less, it's to love smarter. To keep your tenderness, but pair it with strength. To give your heart, but not lose your mind. To care deeply, but not at the cost of your peace. Remember this, you can love someone with your whole heart and still love yourself. You can be deeply connected and still independent. You can care fiercely without becoming someone's emotional caretaker. You can love without losing. If you've been through heartbreak because you loved too deeply, take it as proof of your courage. You were willing to risk, to feel, to give. That's something rare in a world that fears vulnerability. The lesson isn't to close off. The lesson is to love with boundaries, to love with awareness, to love yourself enough to never shrink again. And maybe that's what maturity in love really means. Realizing that depth without balance isn't devotion, it's self-destruction. The most beautiful love is the one that lets you keep your soul intact. The kind that doesn't require you to choose between connection and self-respect. The kind that feels like home, not a battlefield. So next time you find yourself falling deeply, pause and ask, is this love expanding me or erasing me? Because if it's real, it will expand you. It will make you more alive, not less. It will make you more you. And that's the kind of love worth keeping. If this resonated with you, remember, loving deeply isn't your weakness. It's your superpower. Just make sure it's guided by self-respect, not fear. Because the deepest love you'll ever experience is the one you give yourself.